Thank you. Thank you very much. Excited to be here. So over the past 5 years, I have had the privilege of working with builders, no-coders such as yourself to solve some of the hardest organizational challenges. And with no-code tools like Airtable, it's possible for anyone in an organization to solve those challenges with no-code business apps. So in today's talk, we're going to talk about how one builder solved these challenges and transformed her team and organizations with a no-code solution. We will then explore trends that are changing the ways that organizations work together and touch on how AI is affecting and changing the way businesses work. And by the end of this talk, you'll have a few best practices on some of the ways that you can drive connection through, as it says, teams, data, and workflows with Airtable. So I'd like to start with data. Whether you're a Fortune 500 company or a growing startup, data is at the center of your organization. And organizations track all types of data. They track campaigns, they track content. If you're a product team, you're tracking features. And so when you, let me click that. Let's see, the clicker, there we go. There we go. When you share data across teams, this also compounds the impact of that data. It gives you the ability to drive more collaboration and unlocks new possibilities. Oh, apologies. And then AI. AI is revolutionizing the business landscape. And we're still sort of sorting out what those best practices are for AI, but by no means there is a ton of potential impact here on how it is revolutionizing our work. I want to start with a story about Sarah. And Sarah started a role at a Fortune 500 tech company in the operations team in their research department. And when Sarah joined the team, their team's data looked a little bit like this. There we go. Now, question for the group. How does this feel when you're looking at this data? I know when I look at this, I feel like it's a bit chaotic, a bit stressful, a bit overwhelming. There is a lot of squiggly lines here connecting data across the org. And for someone new to the team or anyone working within that environment, that is a lot to coordinate, a lot of tasks that you have to take on as someone working every day, trying to connect your tools, trying to figure out what and how those tools work together. And this caused a number of challenges for their team. So they were using a Google Sheet, which is a fabulous tool for a lot of different use cases, of course. But they were updating that Google Sheet once a quarter, which is akin to checking today's weather with last season's forecast. This made it also hard to trust the accuracy of that data, especially when having cross-functional partnerships, research and marketing needed to talk to one another, and being able to say, is this sample accurate? They were sort of left guessing on key questions that were critical to their work. And then finally, the tools were separated and siloed. So without an end-to-end project tracking, this made that especially difficult for their organization to work together effectively. And it really is key for their team to be able to drive that cross-functional partnership, cross-functional relationship with their data. And so how did we get here? A number of organizations are experiencing these exact same challenges. This isn't unique necessarily to Sarah's team. This may not be unique to the teams that folks out in the audience here are working on. How did we get here? Well, the general thinking and some of the trends I'd love to talk about now is that organizations have changed the way that they're working. The first sort of component of this is that we're more distributed and decentralized than we've ever been. In the last couple years, I've absolutely worked more remotely than I ever have. Grateful to be here in person, of course, today, and hopefully can chat with a few of the folks in the audience after. But this creates a need for more innovation, ways of working, changing the ways that we solve problems remotely. It's pretty difficult at times. On top of that, our teams are bringing in software solutions that are unique to their specific needs. So HR might bring in a tool, whereas marketing might bring in a different tool. And if those don't have interoperability or aren't talking to each other, that can create some friction and disconnection. And if teams are making those purchases decisions independently, it can create silos around the organization. And all of this, we actually have access to more data than ever before. But if we're not able to effectively use that data, it's virtually useless. If we're not able to make decisions or save time and it's actually bogging us down, then we're not moving forward together as an organization. So what happens next? Well, we see these fractures across the organization. There are data silos that break apart teams when in fact they should be moving and working together. And this affects the experience of every employee in this environment. In fact, 2.4 hours, according to a recent study, 2.4 hours every day our employees are spending searching for information. And if you scale that up to an organization of 5,000, that is 3 million hours a year. So these are real dollars lost and a decreased experience as an employee trying and searching for the details that you need just to get your job done. 367. That is the average number of apps that large organizations purchase for their teams to solve projects and use cases. And that is a massive amount of technical debt that organizations are taking on. And they come in a number of flavors, a number of types of apps. So what are those types of tools that go into that large number? The first are your system of record IT solutions. So these are very technical, expensive, but secure. So it doesn't offer maybe potentially a ton of flexibility. The suspense, here we go. We have our project management tools, and these promise to bridge those silos, those deep chasms that we saw before. But oftentimes, these are really specialized in projects and tasks, but organizations have different types of data beyond projects and tasks. So this creates a really thin layer of coordination across these teams. We have, thank you. We have the bottoms-up SaaS tools. And these are out-of-the-box solutions that solve very specific problems quickly, a very specific workflow that your team has in mind. But again, create pockets of data around the organization. And then finally, we have these IT-owned low-code tools. These take a lot of lift for IT teams to set up and a little bit of a newer space. But all that being said, we see that giant 367 there. It's a very large number of tools that folks are navigating within organizations. So what if teams could do something different? And challenge is but an opportunity in disguise. And let's jump back to our story and talk about Sarah and how she created change within her organization using Airtable. So she started small. She imported that initiatives, that research tracker into Airtable. And immediately this had a positive effect on their team. She shared this across her immediate team, and they were able to start to understand that data. It became their single source of truth. They were able to filter by parameters that they couldn't originally, and most importantly, they could answer questions to their research director much more quickly from what took a tedious number of hours to a matter of minutes. And this workflow expanded from there. So what started as just one simple use case became a global research repository. And it changed the relationship of this team to the entire organization. So we have use cases like reporting on results, capturing status updates, and project intake. So these are all different components of their workflow. And note that these are connected to the key tools and data within that organization. A lot cleaner than that original photo, or that original image that we saw at the top. So what does this do? Well, it creates trust and builds efficiency through the organization. Talking with executive leadership, design comms, market research became a lot easier because they're all agreeing about where that data lives and where work happens, and built on top of the tools that they're all collaborating with. And for research participants, it improved their experience. They were able to commit to and hit the deadlines that they had originally committed to. And their team is actually able to send follow-up emails with the push of a button, with automations, instead of having to manually take that time to follow up. So where is this team today? Well, they elevated their impact by shifting their department's focus into more strategic efforts. 6 years after introducing Airtable as a solution, they've scaled their team 2.5x, and they validated a business case to bring on a full-time research librarian. So this is just one example of how a team and department was able to lean into innovation with their data through connection. And what is it that Sarah and her team did differently? And how can we apply this to the work that we're doing at our own organizations? Well, first, she aligned the team around shared data. What is it that everyone cared about? What problems were they trying to solve together? And by creating that single source of truth and having Airtable be at that center, it allowed them to find that alignment. Second is around connecting on that single platform. So they were able to build trust and create consistency by having all of their work in that one place. And this mitigates risk because they aren't using those additional tools, which can maybe not have interoperability or a lack of connection between. So it allows for their team to all have a unified and centered strategy. So now that we've focused on the what, let's shift it to the how. And just show of hands for the audience here, who is using Airtable, has used Airtable? All right, seen some hands. Awesome. And some new folks as well. So if you've used Airtable or you're brand new, this section, really excited to talk about all the ways that we're thinking about building no-code apps and making that process even more seamless for a builder at any level that especially doesn't know code. So in this first example, I'll dig into an example of how to walk that through. But before we jump into the step-by-step, I want to zoom all the way out on what Airtable is, since we have some new folks in the room. So Airtable is a connected apps platform. And the example we just saw was an ecosystem of connected apps, a connected data. And what a connected app is it allows anyone to build a flexible, connected, scalable tool for their business, all on top of shared data and on the same platform. So hopefully that gives you a high-level understanding as we jump into a few principles of how you can go ahead and build with Airtable. Airtable was founded on the principle that software shouldn't dictate the way that you work. You should dictate how the software works. And so anyone should be able to easily build and deploy engaging business apps. That's what Sarah did. She was able to solve those key business challenges because she had an expert knowledge and was a line of business owner using that data. So in this example, let's imagine I am a hiring manager and I want to build an app to track that pipeline. So starting out, we want to know what I want to manage with this app. And there are a few data sets that I can select from. And people is especially important for tracking and working with hiring. So I'll go ahead and select that data set to get started. From there, I can start to customize the key details that are important to me within this workflow. Name, photo, location. These are table stakes when tracking the people within our organization, but there are a number of other fields and options that we can choose from. And of course, this can be customized later as well. It's working now, yeah. And I can elevate my workflow by adding add-ons. So this takes that initial list of data and automatically runs an analysis around capacity planning, pipeline hiring, hiring pipeline, as well as setting up a page for a recruitment schedule. So it's not just that initial data set, it's what we actually do with that data. And so conditionally set to the workflow that I'm most interested in. I can then customize, very important, especially for folks that are familiar with Airtable. I'm sure you've seen you sort of color and make a base your own, setting your logo, personalizing, and then sharing. This is especially critical across an organization. So we want to make sure that everyone within our HR team has access to all of this data, whereas hiring managers may just need access to the roles that are relevant for them. And then in situations where we want to share a version of this data with folks around the organization for onboarding or something like that, we can share another page or another view. So it gives us different options and levels within the organization to personalize how we share. AI. This is an exciting topic. I'm especially excited here to learn from you all about the ways in which we can integrate AI into our work. But with Airtable, we've been obviously talking a lot about data in this talk. So what are the ways that that personal data, that very specific business data that you have, can be elevated with AI and enhanced? We know that there are a lot of best practices still being established, but AI can change the way we understand our data, interpret our data, as well as generate new types of data. So let's jump into an example workflow of how AI enhances Airtable. So in this example, let's imagine I'm a project manager, and I am reviewing customer feedback that's coming in. And I want to do a number of things when that feedback comes in. I want to understand the context and write a short summary of what that feedback is. I want to categorize that feedback for our product roadmap. I want to understand the patterns of what types of feedback are coming in. And then finally, I want to send a response to customers once I've reviewed that feedback. And so let's start at the very beginning of this workflow. And we are submitting a new piece of feedback here. And that, once it's submitted into Airtable, creates a new entry. If the slide will change, there we go. So once that item, that record, populates into Airtable, using AI, those details that I manually had to do previously that could take many, many hours if I have hundreds of pieces of feedback coming in, are automatically generated. I can summarize what the feedback is. I can identify what product area it is related to. And I can even understand the sentiment of that feedback. What's more, I need to respond to a customer around, thanking them, following up with the feedback that they provided. And so with this piece of feedback around bigger notification buttons, we can see this is around visual design. There's a bit of a negative sentiment. And so we can now add another layer of AI and chain these two different fields, AI functionality, together. So what was once generated can now generate a new response, a draft email, and I now have that very first draft based on what the customer said. And this is a great starting place for me to respond to the customer if this looks good to go. Of course, we can edit the text ourselves, make sure that this aligns with our brand voice, or adjust the prompts generating these. Maybe this is too long, and so we can go in and adjust and fine-tune there. And setting up an automation allows us to then send this text off to our customer, all within Airtable. Organizations that are connected across critical data need a number of things. Two things in particular. They need to be able to scale as they grow, and they also need to be able to integrate with their existing tools, because Airtable does a lot, but it's not every single tool in your organization stack. And so for that reason, in this next year, we're focused on expanding the number of integrations that are supported, and this creates greater flexibility on the data that's pulled in or taken out of Airtable, and giving teams the tools, the access to the data they need to get their work done. Second, they need to be able to scale, and so the last year we've expanded our record limits within apps 2x into 500,000 in each app. But we aren't stopping there. We actually have a vision towards 100x scale per app. And this is really in support of high-value business use cases to be able to support some of those largest enterprise customers and customers trying to solve those big problems around their data and their organization. I want to leave you with some best practices that you can bring back to your team. And we've talked about data, we've talked about workflows, AI. At the heart of all of this is human connection and fostering that human connection. So here are 3 steps in sequence that you can start to use to start to build that connection organically. The first is to identify the pain. Start there. Where is there friction? Where are things messy? Where is there an overlap in data across teams? Asking questions like, who needs visibility into what? What processes are manual? And where can we start to save time? And where can we find that sort of opportunity for connection, which is exactly that next step here. And this is really where we can start to bring teams together. What do your teams across the organization have in common? Organizations are ecosystems. Each team obviously has their different initiatives, but there are definitely those threads, that critical data that unites them. And that is unique to every organization, and it's about identifying that and drawing those connections together. Now, teams need to stay flexible, of course, but a little consistency can go a long way. And at its core, Airtable is a relational database. It's structured. It's a structured way of organizing your work. And so creating a processes or creating consistency within your systems allows for that consistency, allows for an improved employee experience, and really supports creating that shared understanding and shared language around your company. So just to recap, audit for inefficiencies, finding that pain, identifying the opportunities for connection, and then striving for consistency and standardization. Just a few final thoughts to leave you with. We started this talk talking about data. I want to end and come full circle talking about connection. When you find those moments for connection, those data solutions will emerge organically. And you can start by bringing your teams together and just talking about those challenges. We suggest a workflow office hours of sorts, once a week, bringing folks together and understanding, where is there friction? How can we connect across teams? How can we create and identify commonalities, which is sort of the center here. Because teams actually may have more in common than they realize. It's just making sure you're bridging the gaps between those silos. And then speaking the same language. Having that shared taxonomy allows you to move together and make sure that you're all moving as one as an organization. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and happy to take any questions.
If anyone, yeah.
Hello, my name is Bastian. I'm a full stack developer. And I wanted to know if the AI features that you're offering with Airtable, do they come from you, from Airtable? Were they developed by Airtable? Or are they integrated from other platforms like ChatGPT or things like this?
Yeah, so that is it is a first-party solution, so we did build that, but it's built with ChatGPT's API, or yeah. So we're pulling the API from ChatGPT, or GPT 3.5 and 4. Thank you for the question.
Hello, my name is Natalie. I hope I won't bother you on this question, but how Airtable is compliant with RGPD? You know, the GDPR?
I can't speak to that off the top of my head, but we have a booth over here today, so please come talk to the team. I am sure we can answer that question. I want to make sure we get that one right.
Yes.
As you're talking that you're working on adding more possibility of integration to Airtable, is it possible, do you have any endpoint to integrate new AIs, new AI feature that someone would have taken from another AI model that you would not have used?
Yeah, I think it's so important. AI is moving so fast. It's important strategically as a business to stay flexible. So we're building on top of ChatGPT and OpenAI's models right now, but maybe Anthropic, or maybe, I definitely don't know the roadmap off the top of my head, but staying flexible and figuring out what the right solution is. We just launched, the feature that you saw is currently in beta. So go check it out, try it out. But the ability for you to use, and any customer to use their, differentiation is really important within AI. There's so many tools, but what data the AI tools have access to is what's going to really create that difference and that value for a customer. So yeah, we're still emerging in what that is. I think a lot of us are trying to figure that out, but it's a very exciting space. Hopefully that answers the question.
If anyone has no more questions.
You have another one?
Yeah? No?
Sorry, brought me another question. So your AI features, what do they source from? Like, can they access? Can the AI access all of your data? How are you securing it? Like, do you have some confidentiality parameters? What is your policy about this? About how do you? Where does the AI take the data?
It's a great question. Again, and similar to the GDPR question, it's hard for me to, off top of my head, answer the specifics, but all of that is definitely available on our site, as well as go talk to the folks at the booth, and we can get you more details there. Privacy and AI are so important, so I 1000% hear you on that. In terms of how it actually works within your app, if you have those specific fields, you're tracking those key details, again, the feedback that you saw, you're able to write a prompt that queries those specific fields and then generate something new, a new field, and the AI field is the name of the functionality specifically. So, great question. But yes, follow up with us in terms of privacy.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. For the future module of AI, is it possible like the AI inside Airtable can read any attachments on Airtable? Can it read images and so on, or is it?
Yeah, I mean, I know, right? Didn't OpenAI just launched with ChatGPT the image functionality? I mean, absolutely, right? I think that this is, I mean, no promises on our roadmap, but I will say we have the attachment field. Dropping in an attachment and be able to generate something new based on that is exceptionally valuable and exciting. So I'm sure. Stay tuned, but
2023?
hard to know. It really is hard to know, but I appreciate the question.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, let's all together thanks again to Michaela for her speech.
Thank you so much.
It was very nourishing. And I would like to invite you to the lunch, which is going next to the booth station, and come back to us at 2 o'clock for the next speech.